My first asylum case was April of last year. Our client was a woman from El Salvador escaping gang violence with her 3 children. One child was very ill.
Her husband, he left to come to the United States. She then was raped by the MS-13 gang and became pregnant with her 3rd child. She had to travel all the way from El Salvador to the United States under the most horrific circumstances. No clothing, no nothing, climbing under bridges, through water, with 2 children, and she was pregnant at the time.
I wrote the brief, very nervous, went to court, argued the case in court with Ted, who's an amazing mentor and person in general. The judge said, "This is a really difficult question of law. I'm gonna decide based on the brief," which I was like, oh my God, I wrote it.
She was granted asylum, and we were just ecstatic about that. She deserved it.
Marge is amazing. Without her, I don't think we would have gotten the decision that we did get. And her attention to detail is incredible. It was awesome getting to work with her. I hope I get to do it in the future.
Cases like this one, where it is really a matter of life or death for Glendy and her family, there's nothing more rewarding. It was just phenomenal.
The ability to actually change someone's life, it's like 6 people over the course of all the asylum work that I've done in only a year. It requires more care, which I'm so happy that I was able to give.
I've been working with Casa Cornelia Law Center in San Diego to help a client who is an 11-year-old boy from Guatemala seeking to be here legally in the US and be reunited with his mom, who is already here. The specific immigration relief that he is seeking is something that's called the special immigrant juvenile status. He has a really strong case. The state court already found in our favor, so I think it's just a matter of paperwork at this point with immigration. As lawyers, we're advocates first and foremost. That's what we do, we advocate. But we're also storytellers. And what I enjoy most about the pro bono work is that I get to craft a narrative, a story for my clients to help obviously advance their best interests. I mean, sign me up. That's why I do what I do, and that's why I enjoy it. I want to be there to help.
The story about Joanna Madrid, it's a story worthy of a novel. She's a young Honduran woman. Her grandmother put her up to work as a live-in nanny at 12 years old. So she had a very rough circumstances from the beginning. She also suffered a lot of abuse from her uncle. She stayed committed to getting an education. She became an activist for the Liberal Party of Honduras. That unfortunately made her a target to the local gangs, mainly MS-13. She's been shot at. 3 men broke into her house, tried to rape her, saying, "We're gonna kidnap your daughter." And so I think the threat to her daughter was really what sparked her to come to the United States. Going through Mexico, we just recently got her defensive asylum case dismissed. We still have to apply for affirmative asylum.
Aaron brings a special passion to this asylum work. He's a Spanish speaker, so he can connect with the clients in a way that not every attorney can.
Ashley dived into the Antelope Valley litigation right when she started with the firm. We have sued a school district down in Southern California, which is imposing very disproportionate discipline against Black students and disabled students. So we filed a complaint and a writ petition.
There's no strict guidelines for how the teachers have to discipline the students. They don't have to report informal suspensions, which is how we get to the issue with Antelope Valley. The policies that are in place allow for these informal suspensions. The numbers don't accurately represent how much the students are being discriminated against. So our goal is systemic relief.
It's not about getting relief for our plaintiff students. Some of them have even graduated already. Some of them do have younger siblings who will be in the school district later, but it's really more about trying to get the district to change their practices.
A lot of the clients that we have, they have family members who will also come up through the system, so that'll help them as well. It's important for me to be a part of something like this. You know, we read about things like this in law school, and so to actually be a part of something like some systemic change is really exciting for me.
The Atlanta Volunteer Lawyer Foundation has a Saturday Lawyers program where there's client intake of low-income tenants that have landlord-tenant issues. For this particular case, our client was a single working mother who is differently abled and had 6 children. The house was infested with mold. The landlord, and then she actually had renter's insurance, and no parties involved that had obligations to help her really did what they were supposed to do. And so we got involved and filed a complaint. All their belongings were destroyed because of the mold, and then her children had ongoing health issues. Through resolution of our complaint process, we're able to get a recovery for herself and her children. Using my pro bono work, it's been great, and the firm's been very supportive of providing such meaningful opportunities for all of the lawyers to use our legal advocacy to give back to communities in areas that are of such importance for future generations and the communities around us.
I began working with the Grandparent Adoption Project with Atlanta Legal Aid about 20 years ago. And over the course of the 20 years, I've helped place about 20 children. The grandparents come to Atlanta Legal Aid, and they're actually doing the job, so they want to make it official that they want to adopt their grandchildren. It's like a puzzle, you know, you just put all the pieces together, and then once it's complete, it's a beautiful thing.
Sandy's approach is organized and driven, and frankly, she has done a lot of adoptions, so she really knows what she's doing way more than I really know what I'm doing, so I lean on her pretty heavily. She always knows what's coming up, which is really important for what we're doing, and she's always trying to get the job done, so from point A to point B, and that's her goal, and it's really great.
I feel like you're directly impacting people in a positive way, and if any of my coworkers are interested in jumping in and doing this type of work, it's very worthwhile, very rewarding, and I'd be happy to come alongside and guide you in the process.
Chris 180 is a client that the firm has been working with for a few years now. Chris 180 was helping some minors that came from the border, giving them schooling and things like that, providing them a place to stay. And the property that they were using was fine for all these years. And then they get a notice in the mail that the property has actually been sold. The landlord no longer owned the property, so they had no right to remove us from property that they didn't own. So we were potentially getting ready to file a temporary restraining order, trying to stop them from removing us from the property. As of right now, we haven't heard any problems or had any issues out of that matter. These pro bono matters kind of highlight for us that these are real people with real issues. And so I'm always making sure that I give 110% because I know that if it was me and I couldn't afford, proper representation, I want somebody to go to bat for me, and I want somebody to really fight for me. So it keeps me grounded. It keeps these issues in the forefront of my mind, and it reminds me that we are dealing with real people with real problems.
The Quarterman Heirs project started around 2019. The Quarterman family owns some property outside of Savannah, Georgia. The DOT came in to take part of the property as a road widening project, but they couldn't offer fair market value for the property because they didn't have clear title to the property. Coincidentally, around the same time, a woman reached out to the Quarterman family and explained that she was a descendant of a man who had actually enslaved the Quarterman family.
The current heirs who are trying to clear title to the property are the descendants of an enslaved gentleman who was given the property as a version of personal reparations by the man who had enslaved him when slavery was abolished. While they had been paying taxes, the state had been happy to accept their money. No one had ever known that they did not have proper, what we describe as marketable title to the property.
There was a deed from George A. Keller to Zeke and Grace Quarterman. From then on, there was never a will, so the property was owned by the heirs of Zeke Quarterman. Our goal was to file a petition to quiet title. So we filed a petition against the world, is what it was called, in Chatham County, and we have a special master appointed that is working with us.
The complicating factor is that we've had to go back to 1890, that original couple, Zeke and Grace Quarterman, create a family tree, identify all of their heirs going back to 1890.
And we have to go and serve all these parties, give them notice. So we have a lot of the family on board with us and some that we didn't know who they were until we started serving them.
You know, Helen, we call her the pro bono queen around here for a reason. And so I think she has really helped take the lead and take the bull by the horns just to sort of rally up these folks, give them that common purpose, and hopefully achieve a good result. And I think they're really close to doing that.
Every time we think we're wrapping it up, a few more heirs come forward or are identified, and we have to locate them and notify them.
And then filing a final motion that kind of says, here's the world of people who are the legitimate heirs who have, you know, potential rights to this property. And then the special master and the judge will take it from there.
The Anti-Racism Alliance, they were representing a class of plaintiffs who were contesting the constitutionality of some anti-panhandling statutes in the city of Montgomery, Alabama. Especially following the end of the Civil War, anti-vagrancy turned into a means to force former slaves into a system of contract labor, slavery by another name. The Anti-Racism Alliance ultimately entered into a couple of settlement agreements with the Sheriff of Montgomery County and the city of Montgomery. So I just would encourage people, like, find something in pro bono that really interests you and is not something that you're just doing to get the hours, and go all in.
The LFAA, the Law Firm Anti-Racism Alliance, have been doing this police brutality database for the last few years, and I've been fortunate enough to be a part of it. We are going through court records. We are going through anything that's publicly available, anything that they've been able to find via FOIA requests, and we are compiling information that they could use into one centralized database.
And the idea is that you could have like a database where you could, if you wanted to, search a police ID number and see if there's been other lawsuits against them for that specific officer.
One of the things I noticed while doing the project was, sadly, the same police officers were coming up again and again in the reports. And again in the reports, it seemed like the city of Philadelphia would kind of make a payout and then it would go away and that police officer was still on the job. So our database is collecting all that data to, in some way, lead to police reform so that these type of instances don't keep happening.
Project for Vote Riders was essentially to upgrade and update a practice guide for folks that wanted to go vote but didn't have the resources, whether it's an ID, whether it's birth certificates to go get their IDs, or even simple questions as if that particular state even required an ID to go vote.
Voting should be one of the easiest things we do and the most accessible thing we do, but more obstacles are being put in place for people where it's getting more and more hard to do. One of the things that we should all have free access to doing, which is voting for our elected officials.
The law firm Anti-Racism Alliance do some amazing work. One thing that drew me to them immediately was their focus on education policy. We're doing some research about alternative schools in Georgia. Essentially, we wanted to see what type of quality education was being provided to students. Disproportionate amounts of Black and brown students are at these alternative schools, and they have a very inferior quality of education. Very interesting project to see, but kind of solidified some of the things I think a lot of us already, had a feeling about what was happening in these alternative schools.
My earliest memory of Merl actually was just how excited she was at the interview and her enthusiasm. It was so cool because she'd been here for a while at that point, about 30 years. And so to see her have worked in like every different part of the firm and then come over to the pro bono team and her enthusiasm and excitement about it and passion behind the work.
What Merl does has a ripple effect across all that we do in the community through pro bono and through corporate citizenship. So while she's one person supporting the firm, she's actually supporting all the work that everybody at the firm is doing.
Merl has this really great way of pointing out any flaws or holes that you're missing in your planning, but doing it in such a way that she puts like a positive spin on it. And it's such a helpful way that you always feel uplifted by her advice.
We've been representing these Afghan women over the past couple of years and just waiting until each one of them had their asylum application approved. But last year we decided to host a lunch at the firm for the ones that were at Georgia State, because Georgia State had taken several of the students in as college students. And so she said, you know, we need to find a halal restaurant. We need to make sure that we're ordering something that they feel really comfortable eating. So that's just sort of in a non-legal way, right? A way for her to express we care about you and your individual needs. And that comes across in so many ways.
These women demonstrated such incredible courage and are working very hard to build a new life here and hopefully to even bring their families over here to join them. And I'm so happy that we have been able to provide these women safety and security in a new world. I am so incredibly proud of the amazing work that Kilpatrick does in pro bono. I also want to give a big, big shout out to Tamara and Dion. I have learned so much from both of them that has helped me grow as a legal professional, but so much more, especially as a person. And I just can't imagine not having had them as part of my last leg of my legal journey. It's been an incredible journey, and I'm very grateful to them for that.